Why you should never ever lie. And with this being said, hello and welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics fucking podcast. And I'm pretty fucking pumped to be here. I'm totally. And we're going ahead with the 12 Rules of Life by Jordan B. Peterson. Actually, his name is so in my fucking mind, it's insane, I do not even have to think about his name, and I just know it. Which might be because I'm just, going through his summary and telling his name every single day for actually a week, I guess, It's been very, very long. It's been really long, and there are still 4 rules left, and I'm just doing quite each episode only like 1 to 1.5, 2 rules, which is not quite much, which definitely is not much. Microphone is actually a little bit. Can I just? Yeah, I can. Make it a little bit higher so that you hopefully, just understand me very good. I hope the audio quality also for the podcast is very good. I've just been listening to myself actually today. I've been thinking about if I should actually just still do the podcast this way and or the video this way, or if I should just cut some things and if I just should make it a little more visualized and a little better or something. But I don't know. I really don't know. I didn't come to a great conclusion somehow. It is very, very difficult for me to decide whether it should be something a little smaller in terms of the length of the video or of the podcast actually, or should it stay the same? Because as a podcast it is actually pretty nice to just read through the whole thing, but I just quite understand that people actually do not want to watch the videos because I'm actually just reading things, and that might not be that nice to just watch, but I'm just then was thinking about I was just then thinking about people who are making reaction videos, which is quite the same as I'm doing, just like in another purpose or in another let me do something. Because because it is actually somehow bothering me that the background of my videos is always so fucked up with my fucking towel on my fucking closet, and I do just want to change it up because I think it just doesn't look that nice, or it could look just way nicer, and I thought there is no towel anymore behind me. And today there will be a vlog, hopefully, definitely the one 2 weeks ago actually, because I did film something but I never ever uploaded it, which was complete bullshit. I didn't know why. I somehow didn't manage to cut it. But I do not really want to waste your time and or my time as well. I think we're just gonna go ahead with the video and or the podcast. And I've actually also been thinking about doing more things here, because as you might know, I'm not cutting my videos, all the effects and all the things that you're seeing on the screen is basically just through the software that I'm using, which is OBS, which is Open Broadcaster, which is amazing, because you can do all these effects without actually cutting anything, which is pretty great for the people like me that do either not have the time and or the proper internet to actually upload such huge files, because most of the time through just cutting them and rendering them afterwards, files actually got double the size, which is incredible in a negative way. So it's then quite insane. So we go ahead with rule 8, which is tell the truth. This rule discusses not only lying to others, but also lying to yourself and obscuring your personal truth. Peterson guides on how to develop your personal truth and act consistently with it. This 12 Rules for Life summary chapter is fairly abstract, but try to see if its principles resonate with the specific problem you have in life. And I do think that especially lying in general is bullshit. I really hate lying. I don't do it myself. just so extremely rare that I would even say I'm never ever doing it. But sometimes I just, yeah, I do. I'm not gonna lie. I just do really, really sometimes, but I don't like it. I pretty much hate it. I don't like to do this. And I think it's also the same thing with actually lying to yourself, because it's not good either. If you're really trying to be somebody you actually aren't, then you're practically also quite lying to yourself, even though it doesn't feel like this maybe. So yeah, I do think and I do believe that actually just really being honest to yourself about your skills, about your health, about how your life is looking like and how your life in general is like. I think it's very important to just be pretty pretty truthful to yourself, and just admitting, okay, my life is shit at the moment. I'm not happy at the moment. This thing is fucked up at the moment, and whatsoever. I guess there are a lot of things actually people are always trying to talk it good somehow, and just somehow pursue themselves that everything is okay, but just talking about it in a positive way and whatsoever, but nothing is okay. So why you lie? Day to day you may lie to the outside world to get what you want and avoid pain. You tell lies to appear more competent, to gain status, to be well liked, to prevent conflict, and this is you manipulating. It is always just a very difficult word for me. Manipulating the world, or their world actually. On a deeper level, you may lie to yourself about what you want. You might have a dream life envisioned by your younger self, without probing carefully into whether you really want it. In brackets, career and retirement goals are common examples here. You may entertain ideas about what you really want, but decisive yourself into thinking they're impossible to reach or undesirable after all. You then act in ways that you paper over with more lies, but deep down it's inconsistent with your beliefs and you feel unsettled. Beware of the big lie, in Hitler's terms, which was something that kind of made me stuck a little bit, because just suddenly, okay, Hitler, it's very, I think it's still, at least in Europe, definitely in Europe and definitely also in my country, in Austria, definitely something that people do not particularly like to talk about. Because as you might know, Hitler is actually Austrian. All people think that he's German, but he actually isn't. So he was basically born in Austria, unfortunately. And he also invaded Austria, and, we were under his control, basically. And we also fucked it up. We clearly did. It's not like, okay, it's all the Germans' fault and we didn't do anything. Definitely not. We did shit as well, and we didn't just handle the whole situation as great as we could have. And especially the people who were living in Austria then, not all of them, definitely not all of them, but some of them, and quite a few, I'd say, who were just, praising him and just, waving at him when he was just, driving with his car through Austria and, whatsoever. But yeah, so something so large and audacious that you cannot accept someone would intentionally fabricate it. This could be about who to blame for your faults or what you should do with your life. You may not be actively misleading other people, but merely lying by omission or omission. This isn't any better. If your boss does something you dislike, not confronting her about it is still lying. I'm not quite, just, I wouldn't say so. It is always like, and this is also something that lawyers, are there lawyers? No, it's not the lawyer, but, when you're actually in the, what is the shit called? I don't actually know. What the fuck? When you just got sued and something and you go to a certain place and there is your lawyer and another person's lawyer most of the time, and then there are, is it no, it's not the Congress. Yeah, if you just get sued, I think you know what I mean. So we were there with class because it is somehow just common in my age, or for my age, with school to actually go to this certain place, which name I actually don't know yet, or by now, quite at the moment. And she said that, so to all the, it wasn't the suspect, but people who may have actually seen or may actually know something about the suspect or what happened and whatsoever. So these civilists who just, get called in and they just have to talk to the certain person who is just kind of ruling the whole situation or kind of ruling the whole room. And she was saying, so it was a she was telling us, or the guy and or girl, what it was both, so not in the same person, but you know what I mean. And she was telling him and she was telling her that they do or must not lie. They really don't have to. They aren't allowed to quite, and they also do not should just leave anything out, or miss out on something, like, And I think this is practically what they want to say. So, long story short, I don't think only because you're just not telling something that it is lying. I'm not quite thinking about it in this way, I guess, but I'm actually not thinking about it that often because I'm not using it or I'm not doing it. So why would I think about it? So you're acting inauthentically, not in accordance with your beliefs. If you habitually avoid conflict, don't complain when mistreated, and suppress your own ideas, you're still lying to yourself. This makes you feel weak because your existence has little real meaning. You've become a tool to be used, obliterating your independence. Even worse, on a meta, it's METH level, you may be in denial about lying to yourself. You may believe that your truth is the only truth and that no amount of new knowledge can change what you believe. That all important facts have been discovered and that everything will work out perfectly. Your lie may begin with protecting yourself from reality. You may believe reality is intolerable and must be, I know it's not pronounced like this, but for me it runs a bit smoother, to be honest. You want to avoid that short-term pain, which is always the thing, this is actually something that I've read, I guess it was yesterday, in a summary of one of Tony's books, so Tony Robbins' book, which was Awaken the Giant Within, right? Which is quite a great book, I'd say, and I guess he just shares a lot of psychological stuff and, stuff that you can use to actually change yourself and change your mind and eventually also change other people. And he said that, the only two things that I guess, I'm not quite sure, I've read it yesterday it was a summary and I just read through it so that I get something for the post. But I think it was something like, we humans actually only try to get out of pain, or just to not get pain, or to gain pleasure. So either we are trying to avoid or trying to not be in pain, or we're trying to get pleasure, period. And I think what I want to say is that I don't know what I want to say. So you want to avoid that short-term pain. It makes sense because we humans, I'm just, guessing right now, I'm not quite knowing. I really just have to say I'm not quite knowing, but, because of what I've read yesterday and what's in there, and because of the sentence, you want to avoid that short-term pain, I assume, we definitely do not want to have pain, in any kind of form, I guess. Physical pain, I think, in terms of if you're just, running and doing some exercise and whatever, I guess this is something else, because there's actually some endorphins, some chemicals exposed through this that actually make you happy, which is something that I learned yesterday, which was great. And there's a post on my Instagram and Twitter and Facebook about this certain thing, and it is actually online. It is a green one, so it's just a green picture, and it makes sense that we just want to avoid pain. And even though I do just have to say, this is also something that that he actually pointed out, I think, in the really upper part of this actual rule, is that, No, I think it was the rule before or some before. So he was basically talking about long-term, long-term decision making and short-term decision making. And the problem there is that, short-term decision making isn't the best all the time, because it's just not, it is just, I can't even explain why, but it's just not, you wouldn't save, you wouldn't just eat right because you're just thinking like, okay, I'm gonna die anyway, so I'm not just going for the long term. You won't just invest into index funds and just use the power and the magic, as some people even say, of compound interest. You wouldn't do so much or so many great things, which is sad. And I don't know, people, I think, and often, and also just the people that are around me in school and whatsoever, they live for fucking short-term pleasure. Just getting some great burger, or just, smoking the cigarette, or whatever it will be. It's just short-term bullshitty pleasure. I understand it, and I do not really say, okay, you should never ever have something like, this short-term pleasure, but for the sake of actually having long-term pleasure of being maybe healthy, which is one of the reasons why I should actually think long-term, to be healthy, because of that you wouldn't just then, eat so unhealthy, because okay, if I'm 67, I won't just feel shit if I'm not eating this shit right now. And you're just, buying everything that you want, and you're not saving anything. So actually, there are quite a few reasons and explanations from mine that why I think that short-term thinking and short-term pleasure thinking especially is bullshit, and is something that you should particularly not go for all the time. It is important to say all the time. But after a certain point, the lies take on a life of their own, which is actually true. First you started with a little lie, and then support it with further little lies, and then you distort your thinking to avoid shame of those lies, and then those lies become necessary and become ritualized into unconscious action. The longer you lie, the more you believe it, and the harder it is to undo. All this may work in short term, but ultimately you will run into failure. If you betray yourself, if you act out a lie, you weaken your character. And if you have a weak character, adversity will bulldoze you. You've already trained yourself to allow things that you disagree with by failing to react the first time. And it definitely makes sense, but I just understand the people who are not just, immediately, going up to the person and or to their boss even, and being like, I don't want to do this thing. Maybe it's just me, I'm not doing this, I think especially when it's about authority persons, especially my boss, and I do think I wouldn't just do it with my future boss in my internship this summer, so I don't know, but maybe I should just, but, I do not think that actually just people always want something negative for you, thinking like, okay, my fucking boss just wants me to be fucking unhappy, and therefore I have to do this fucking work, or some shit like this. I'm totally not thinking like this. I'm totally just thinking like, okay, your boss just thinks like, okay, it's okay that he's doing this, and maybe you are a good person for doing this or whatsoever, but I don't know. I'm really not thinking just negatively about all the people all the time, and I guess it is also important to not just be so negative always. All this may work in short term, but ultimately you will run into failure. I've actually read that. So this leads to bitterness, because you are avoiding pain and fabricating your world. You are likely to avoid personal responsibility for your failures. You will blame the world as unfair and other people as getting in your way. It is not hard to take this one step further to believing they must be stopped. And another step further into revenge. Revenge, by the way, is something I totally hate. I totally hate revenge, and it doesn't make any fucking sense for me. Especially on a really small level. Just because someone told you some shit because he was angry or she was angry, doesn't mean that you just have to give it back to this person. You do just not need the fucking revenge. At my point of view, at least. At my point of view, this is total bullshit. I just understand that people might be just, pissed off by some other people because they did something that wasn't that great. But who the fuck cares? Everybody does some shit, or just some shit. Sometimes it's not something new. It's not something that, you don't do, and you would like to have a person that's just like, okay, I understand this, but, please don't do this any longer or, anymore, or just, another time. Please don't do this, and just, keep attention to it. Even though I do just have to say, if people are really pissed at me, I'm pissed on as well. This is for sure, but it also feels differently. If another person is really just pissed at me because I did something bad, which isn't, that uncommon, I'd say. It happens quite sometimes. But I don't know, if they're immediately like, okay, it's okay. I'm not feeling like, okay, this was bad what I was doing. Somehow, it's quite difficult to explain. So, but somehow. But nevertheless, revenge is something I just don't like. Were there some sounds just there? Or am I dreaming? Oh my god. I should definitely sleep. The light is, by the way, not that good. So all this applies to many levels of existence. You may be lying to yourself about what you want to do with the rest of your life. That you enjoy a job that actually bites against your being. That you continue relationships you know are toxic under the guise of convenience or comfort. That you're not capable of something that is not worth trying, even though deep down you know you really want it. That a bad habit really isn't that bad or actually good for you. That things will get better on their own and things will magically work out without your involvement. That you know what you're doing in life when really you're too scared to confront uncertainty. Clearly, this leads to bad outcomes and misery. So what do you do? And this now is the section about what you should actually do, which is great, I guess. It's always great, but at the end it kind of, at least for me, feels like out of lying and through all this lying, you're basically creating a reality for yourself, which is definitely something that I've been just talking about and making also some episodes about on this channel as well, and or on this podcast as well, which is extremely, at my point of view at least, extremely interesting. That we actually, and I think everybody to some degree is actually just changing their reality. So I do often see it, but I don't know, I'm explaining it. I do quite often see that some people or some people's reality actually doesn't seem to be like my reality. So I'm seeing things completely different than these people are seeing it. And also sometimes it kind of feels for me that I'm in another world than they are, because they're just so seeing something differently or seeing something so differently, than I'm doing. And then I'm thinking like, okay, they're fucked up or something, but it could actually be also my reality. But I don't think so. I really don't think so, because I'm just, talking about these things and just, kind of having myself and also my mind somehow in control. And I'm just knowing this, and I guess, as always, that actually knowing it and recognizing it and just being aware of it is the first step to actually just cure yourself of this somehow, I do not want to say illness, but disease, not also, but let's say disease or whatsoever. So how to tell the truth? First, develop your personal truth. Figure out what you really want and why. And if you don't know what you want, you can start with tradition and work from there. Your truth is truly personal to you, based on you and your circumstances. So sorry, I'm gonna read this again. So your truth is truly personal to you, based on you and your circumstances. Even though I do just have to say the whole circumstances thing isn't that bad, as a lot of people might think like, Actually, with happiness, circumstances do not have quite anything to do. I once went through a book which was kind of based on happiness and why we are happy and how we can get happy and whatever. And I think circumstances were only quite 20% of the whole thing, while something else was just quite a lot. So at the end, your circumstances do not mean anything, and this is, for me at least, also one of the reasons why you see so many happy poor people. Kids in Africa who do not have anything, who maybe even don't have water. They just seem happy and they just look happy and they're just smiling all day. Maybe I'm just seeing it something or somehow differently. Maybe it's just my reality. But yeah, so ambitious based around developing character and ability are better than status and power. You can lose status, you carry character wherever you go. So you can lose status, but you carry character wherever you go. I do think so. Yeah, I really do think so. The character is actually something important, and status is maybe, unfortunately, something very, very, very important for people. Actually, the only reason why why there are brands and why we buy branded stuff, like, if it's cars, if it's clothing, if it's phones, I don't give a fuck. There are also some other factors why we buy things, like, I wouldn't like to buy myself an Android phone because I wouldn't be able to use AirDrop and iMessage and all these things that are quite neat and that I'm quite maybe used to and that I quite just like to have. And in terms of my convenience, it is better. But yeah, just as an example. So note that because people have different truths, it by nature necessitates different goals from others, which also makes comparisons to most other people pointless. Definitely true, and I deeply like this point of the author of the author of the summary there. So this was actually in brackets, and it's completely true. We are all individuals, and we are all doing things differently, and we are thinking differently, and our DNA is differently. Like, if you're having a twin, okay, there might be similarities, and in terms of your interests and values and circumstances, there might also be similarities and or just likelinesses. But we are still individuals, and you're learning your way, I'm learning my way, and he and or she is learning their way. And that's fine. And so therefore, really comparing yourself to others is really kind of pointless. But I have to be a little bit faster today. So confronting this will likely be painful. Error requires sacrifice to correct it. Serious error requires serious sacrifice. This may mean accepting weaknesses you didn't want to confront earlier. It may mean having conflicts with people you were lying to before. This is the cost of correcting an error. But once you develop a personal truth, it gives you a destination to travel towards. And ambition reduces anxiety because having either everything or nothing available are far worse options. Definitely, because we totally have some kinda, something. Sorry. So next, keep an open mind to new information and adjust your truth. Be willing to learn from what you don't know. While tradition is a good start, it may not longer apply if the circumstances have truly changed. Putting yourself in new situations will literally grow your brain, transform your values, and you will progress. And then act only consistently with your personal truth. Speak in a way that makes you feel strong, not weak and sick. Act only in ways that your internal voice does not object to. A lie spoils all truth it touches. It's like a tiny drop of savage, but it's with a W, so I don't know, in a bottle of champagne. Stand up for your beliefs. If you say yes when you want to say no, you weaken your resolve and become habituated to violating your beliefs. You will lack the strength when you really need it. Instead, when you say no, you transform yourself into someone who can say no when it needs to be said. Which is also, I guess, very important. And even though, in some in some circumstances, I guess being a yes sayer quite all the time is also something that's not so bad, you know. I've just read some things, and Gary Vee was also sometimes talking about actually being in the yes business rather than the no business. It might be another context. It definitely might be. So I'll just let it be there. So Nietzsche said that the strength of a person's spirit is measured by how much truth he could tolerate, to what extent he needs to have it diluted, disguised or disgust. It's DISGUISED and or sweetened. Again, all of this applies to many levels of existence. From the deepest level, it means defining what you want to do with your life and shifting your time and energy to achieving progress in that direction. It means defining what kinds of relationships you want with people and reconstructing ones that don't meet your wants. It means doing something about things you disagree with in the world, how a country is moving, a policy your employer enacts, how you see a stranger treat another stranger. It means telling your friend or partner what you really think at the expense of a conflict for a long-term gain. This, by the way, makes sense. Just being truthful to your partner and being like, okay, I do not maybe like your hair, but that's okay. You know, it doesn't mean that you don't love this person, only because you think maybe another girl has just nicer hair or some shit like this. But I guess, you know, if you're just always keeping it for yourself, and you're just always just keeping it in your mind and keeping it for yourself, that, you know, some things are not okay maybe, and or you're pissed about something they did and you're never ever saying it, I guess it just builds up a lot of tension in yourself that somehow then also correlated to this other person, the other person. And I guess this shouldn't be, because, you know, for the long term, it might not be good, because if there's always this kind of tension in you, inside you, and maybe also in the other person as well, because she or he, you know, whatever, is also not saying these things or the things that he or she should be saying or wants to say, or just, you know, are in his or her head, I think it will just build up a lot of tension and build up a lot of, somehow explosions in yourself, and you will rub on each other. Just metaphorically, like, you know, I guess. So what do you do when you, which is a great question, I assume. So what do you do when you don't know what to do? Tell the truth. At the very least, you will be trusted for being honest, and you'll feel the strength that comes with authenticity, actually, which is great, and which definitely feels right. And I'm quite often thinking about and also talking about doing the right thing and doing the easy thing. You know, just lying a lot and so on is definitely easy, you know, because you're just saying some things and the whole situation will be good for the whole time, and just, you know, telling the truth and being really honest is sometimes not so easy, but I guess it is right for you and also maybe the other person, because it is just about the long term, isn't it? You know, I don't know, but yeah, I don't know what you want to end it so sad. So this was it with the episode. I do hope that you've got something out of it. I think it got a pretty nice episode, didn't it? So you know, in terms of the speaking, which is one of the, you know, main factors for myself to really decide whether an episode was good and or was bad, it went well, which is nice for me, which is something I deeply like. But yeah, I still wish you the best health, wealth, happiness, and success. And yeah, still remember that you should give something back if you want to be remembered as a great person, so quite for your legacy. So give back to the people if they've given you something in return or before or whatsoever. Doesn't quite matter so much. And it is about the long term. I see you.